Hello to Miss Maslow's sixth grade class. My name is Leland Davidson, and I'm a friend of Miss Maslow. We were both Peace Corps volunteers together in the time when she was living in Benin. I have offered to help her read the Harry Potter series that she is reading for you, and I want to help out in any way I could. So for today's video, I will be reading Chapter 4. Uh, I'm hoping to help out in any way I can, and like Miss Maslow, I will be trying to explain some things that may seem confusing, and I will try my best to read the words as slowly and thoughtfully as possible. So we will now start with Chapter 4, The Keeper of the Keys. Boom! They knocked again. Dudley jerked awake. "Where's the cannon?" he said stupidly. There was a crash behind them, and Uncle Vernon came skidding into the room. He was holding a rifle in his hands. Now they knew what had been in the long, thin package he had brought with him. "Who's there?" he shouted. "I warn you, I'm armed." There was a pause, and smash! The door was hit with such force that it swung clean off its hinges, and with a deafening crash, landed on the floor. A giant of a man was standing in the doorway. His face was almost completely hidden by long shaggy mane of hair and a wild tangled beard. But you could make out his eyes glinting like black beetles under the hair. The giant squeezed his way into the hut, stooping so that his head just brushed the ceiling. He bent down, picked up the door, and fitted it easily back into the frame. The noise of the storm came outside, dropped a little. He turned and looked at them all. "Couldn't make us a cup of tea, could ye? It's not been an easy journey." He strode over to the sofa, where Dudley sat frozen with fear. "Budge up, ye, you great lump," said the stranger. Dudley squeaked and ran to hide behind his mother, who was crouching, terrified, behind Uncle Vernon. "Ah, here's Harry," said the giant. Harry looked up into the fierce, wild, shadowy face and saw that the beetle's eyes were crinkled with a smile. "Last time I saw you, you was only a baby," said the giant. "Ye looked a lot like your dad, but ye've got your mum's eyes." Uncle Vernon made a funny rasping noise. "I demand that you leave us once, sir," he said. "You are breaking and entering." "Ah, shut up, Dursley, ye great prune," said the giant. He reached over the back of his sofa, jerked the gun out of Uncle Vernon's hands, bent it into a knot as easily as if it was made of rubber. He then threw it to the corner of the room. Uncle Vernon made a funny noise, like a mouse being trotted on. "Anyway, Harry," said the giant, turning his back on the Dursleys, "a very happy birthday to ye. Got summer for ye here. I might have set on it at some point, but it'll taste all right." From inside his pocket of his black overcoat, he pulled a slightly large sticky chocolate cake with "Happy Birthday, Harry" written on it in green icing. Harry looked up at the giant. He meant to say thank you, but his words got lost on the way to his mouth, and what he said was, "Who are you?" The giant chuckled. "True, I haven't introduced myself. Rubus Hagrid, keeper of the keys, and grounds at Hogwarts." He held out an enormous hand and shook Harry's whole arm. "What about the tea, then, eh?" He said, rubbing his hands together. "I'd not say no to some as stronger, if ye've got it. Mind." His eyes fell on the empty grate with the shriveled crisp packets in it, and he snorted. He bent down over the fireplace. They couldn't see what he was doing, but he drew back a second later. There was a roaring fire there. It filled the whole damp hut with flickering light, and Harry felt the warmth wash over him as though he had sunk into a hot bath. The giant sat back on the sofa, which sagged under his weight, and began taking all sorts of things out of his pockets, of his coat: a copper kettle, a squashy package of sausages, a poker, a teapot, several chipped mugs, and a bottle of some amber liquid. which he took a swig from before starting to make tea. Swig's just another way to say drink. Soon the hut was full of sound and smell of sizzling sausage. Nobody said a thing while the giant was working, but as he slid into the first 6 fat, juicy, slightly burnt sausages from the poker, Dudley haggard a little. Once Vernon said sharply, "Don't touch anything he gives you, Dudley." The giant chuckled darkly. "Your great puddin' of a son don't need fatten any more." Dursley don't worry. He passed the sausages to Harry, who was so hungry he had never tasted anything so wonderful. But he still couldn't take his eyes off the giant. Finally, as nobody seemed about to explain anything, he said, "I'm sorry, but I still don't really know who you are." The giant took a gulp of tea and wiped his mouth with the back of a hand. "Call me Hagrid," he said. "Everybody does. Like I told you, I'm keeper of the keys at Hogwarts. You know all about Hogwarts, of course." No," said Harry. Hagrid looked shocked. "Sorry?" Harry said quickly. "Sorry?" barked Hagrid, turning to stare at the Dursleys, who shrank back into the shadows. "It's them as should be sorry. I knew you weren't getting your letters, but I never thought you wouldn't even know about Hogwarts, for crying out loud. Did ye never wonder where the parents learnt it all?" "All what?" said Harry. "All what?" Hagrid thundered. "Now wait just a second." He had leapt to his feet in his anger, and he seemed to fill the whole hut. The Dursleys were cowering against the wall. "Do you mean to tell me," he growled at Dursleys, "that this boy knows nothing about anything?" Harry thought this was going a bit far. He had been to school after all, and his marks weren't bad. "I know some things," he said. "I can, do maths and stuff." But Hagrid simply waved his hand and said, "About our world. I mean your world. My world, your parents' world." "What world?" Hagrid looked as if he was about to explode. "Dursley!" he boomed. Uncle Vernon, who had gone very pale, he was very white, he was very scared, whispered something and sounded like Mimble Wimble. Hagrid stared widely at Harry. "But yeah, must know about your mum and dad," he said. "I mean, they're famous. You're famous." "What? My mom and my dad weren't famous, were they?" You don't know." "You don't know." Hagrid ran his fingers through his hair, fixing Harry with a bewildered stare. "You don't know ye are," he said finally. Uncle Vernon suddenly found his voice. "Stop!" he commanded. "Stop right there. Sir, I forbid you. You tell this boy anything." A braver man than Vernon Dursley would have quailed under his furious look Hagrid now gave him. When Hagrid spoke, his very syllable trembled with rage. His voice was raging. "You never told him that he You never told him what was in the letter Dumbledore left for him." "I was there. I saw Dumbledore leave it." "Dursley, and you kept it from him all these years." "Kept what from me?" Harry said eagerly. "Stop! I forbid you!" yelled Uncle Vernon in a panic. Aunt Petunia gave a gasp of horror. "Ah, go boil ye heads. Boil of ye," said Hagrid. "Harry, you're a wizard." There was silence in the hut. Only the sea and the whistling wind could be heard. "I'm a what?" gasped Harry. "A wizard, of course," said Hagrid, sitting back down on the sofa, which groaned and sank even lower. "And a thumping good one, I say. Once you've been trained up a bit, with a mum and dad like yours. What else would ye be? and I reckon it's about time ye read the letter." Harry stretched out his hands at last to take the yellowish envelope, addressed in emerald green, to Mr. H. Potter, the floor, hut on the rocks, the sea. He pulled out the letter and read,